Hello and welcome back to Heard and Seen. It's been a little while since I posted, so I hope you're all travelling well in these strange times. But yeah, it's been a little while since I did a post, and a friend of mine, Steve, asked me when my next post was going to be, and suggested maybe I'll do one. You just do your top 10 played albums, through your lifetime. So which albums have I played the most? And I thought, oh well, that's easy enough. Sure, let's do that. So I spent some time going through them, and then there's all your favourite albums, and then so I had to start thinking, well, which ones actually have I played the most? And of course, the ones I've played the most probably take me back to my youth, because I've had those the longest as well. So it's separating out those, and quite an interesting exercise, and narrowing it down to 10 was quite a thought process. But so I thought I got my 10, and then very proud of myself, and then looked at them, and actually there's 11. So here we go. This will be my top 11 albums that I've played the most in my lifetime. So I've loaded them all into my rather lovely Grizzly Works goatskin tote bag, which hasn't had much of an outing lately. Just shout out to my mate Anthony at Grizzly Works in South Australia, who makes these beautiful things by hand. So in here we go. So number 11, and this is by a little known heavy rock band from the 80s called the Headpins, which features the rather screechy but aching vocals of the amazing Darby Mills, here sporting a very fetching leotard, and the amazing riffing of Brian Too Loud McLeod, unfortunately the late great Brian McLeod. This just has this amazing riffage, great warm guitar tones. Combine that with Darby Mills's vocals, and it makes a great record. And this is just one that I reached for over the years. I put it onto cassette in the 80s and used to drive to a lot. So yeah, still pull this one out on a regular basis, and much underrated band really. So yeah, the Headpins, Head Over Heels, that was from 1985, I believe. So that was number 11. So top 10. That's in the top 10. Well, at number 10, INXS, the amazing INXS, Listen Like Thieves. And I had to think about this because you tend to automatically reach for Kick or X with this band. But I thought about it, and actually this is probably the one I've listened to the most over the years. 1986, a mate of mine rang me up and said, we're going to go and see a band called INXS. I've got tickets at Guildford, I think Civic Hall in Surrey in England. Never heard of them, but boy, they blew me away. And this was the album that they were touring. It's full of great tracks, and I think this was the peak of them before they sort of reinvented themselves a little bit with Kick. And this edition came with a copy of their previous album, The Swing, inserted in there as well. So bonus as well. But yeah, love this. And INXS have got a new lease of life in my household with my daughters. Really love this band now, and so I feel that I'm doing a good job as a parent, and they're getting a good education. So Listen Like Thieves by INXS from 1980, that's also 85, I believe. Now, as a teenager, I was definitely a bit of a rocker, and one of my favourite guitarists, perhaps my favourite guitarist, was Michael Schenker. So naturally I play him a lot, still do. And the album that I worked out that I go for is Lights Out from 1977. And he was very young when he made this, probably about 17 or 18. But even then it was just precocious. And I think the reason I go for this album is this has amazing light and shade. It captures them at their hardest rocking, but also their most sensitive. The vocal performances are really strong. Michael Schenker's playing is amazing, from the beautiful a guitar solo from the ballad Try Me, goes straight into some really hard guitar playing in Lights Out, from one track to the next. So yeah, there's the Mad Mickey himself up here, and yeah, tragically we lost Pete Way here as well this year. But that's the UFO album that I keep going back to. And while we're on guitarists, this was perhaps one of the hardest, with Ritchie Blackmore, and we share a birthday. I like to think that gives us some kind of connection, but just what a player. And you kind of automatically reach for your Machine Heads and Burn and what have you, but this is probably the one I've played most, and that's Rainbow Rising. So you take one of the best guitarists or rock guitarists in the world, you pair in one of the best rock drummers in the world in Cozy Powell, and you then add perhaps the best heavy rock singer ever in Ronnie James Dio, and you've got a great band. And there's a track on here that any heavy rock fan will know called Stargazer that is just completely epic. And when I've played it, I struggle to reach for anything else. I have to take a bit of a break from listening. It's a very powerful album, and it stayed with me. And just I look at how well worn this cover is, and I can tell I've just played it a lot. So that's Ritchie Blackmore Rising from, I think, 1976. A truly great album. Sadly, we no longer have Cozy or Ronnie James Dio with us. Or in fact, the bassist as well, Jimmy Bain, also gone as well. So yeah, great album. What else is in the tote? Let's take a look. So in the 80s, Marillion were perhaps one of my favourite bands, and there was something about Marillion from Script for a Jester's Tear onwards, where just a combination, I think, of a melody, of the interplay between their keyboards and their guitar, and the sort of vitriolic vocals and storytelling of Fish, their singer, which makes them a very compelling listen, end to end. All of their albums were sort of pretty much concept albums with these amazing artwork covers. And I've gone for Fugazi, perhaps being the one I reach for the most, but any of them really I've played a lot, but I think this is my favourite. It captures them before their real mainstream commercial success, and they'd also really found their groove with their new drummer Ian Mosley, who's a very powerful player, who I first saw playing with Steve Hackett at my first ever concert. So that's Marillion, Fugazi, and that was 1984, that particular one. So that brings us to number 6 in my list. And for number 6, I've gone for a bit of Chris Rea and A Road to Hell. And what a great singer, guitar player he is. And certainly this era, he was at his most powerful, voice like honey, and just a delightful guitar tone. He was the master of layering riffs and melodies on top of each other to build crescendo. There's a track on here called Texas that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and this is perhaps my favourite album by Chris Rea, but there's a few others from this era as well. Shamrock Diaries, Auberge, God's Great Banana Skin, all great albums. So Chris Rea, right up there, and I've always had a copy of this wherever I've been. Now I am a child of the 80s, and this is perhaps one of the forgotten gems of the 80s. Love and Money, Strange Kind of Love, from 1988, and just a beautiful album. James Grant, the singer, has this amazing husky, rich tonal voice. There's some great rhythm on here. Jeff Porcaro on Toto plays drums quite a bit, and the bass lines are just exquisite. But there's fantastic melancholy, there's fantastic groove, It's uplifting and also relaxing at the same time. Produced by Steely Dan's producer Gary Katz, and I think Donald Fagen apparently makes a cameo on here, but God knows doing what. But this album, just play a lot. So that is number 5 on my top 11. Right, so we're up to number 4, and by now you must be all getting very excited to see what the leading albums are in my playlist. But number 4, well, I reached 4, Fleetwood Mac, and Tango in the Night on this one. You know, when people think Fleetwood Mac, they automatically go Rumours, but I'm going to go my own way and go with Tango in the Night. For me, this is their strongest album. Just there's so many great tracks on here, beautifully performed, textured, amazing sounding record, incredibly romantic record, and have a couple of very special memories on this record. And yeah, beautiful cover. And I just play this a lot. There's so many sing-along songs on here, but you can all equally just sit down and let it wash over you. It is an amazing listen. So for all you young ones discovering Fleetwood Mac, you know, when you've been to Rumours, come and listen to this one as well. So Tango in the Night by Fleetwood Mac, 1987. That one. This was the UK pressing. Great album, and sounds as good now and as fresh now as it ever has. Number 3. So this one takes me back to school. So I went to boarding school, and yeah, we had our own studies and play music, and this was an album that I think I'd recorded off someone else initially on cassette. Don't arrest me. But this is just an album where you could just zone out, and it takes you it gives you 40 minutes of absolutely sublime listening, and that's Simple Minds' New Gold Dream. This is an album I like so much, I've got 4 different copies of it. This is perhaps one of the better ones, the Abbey Road Half-Speed Master. Just a beautiful album, great textures, stunning atmosphere, beautiful melodies, great tunes. They don't feel like they're trying too hard like some of their subsequent albums. New Gold Dream's just a sensational, powerful track. So that Simple Mind New Gold Dream from 1982, I think. If you find a copy of the SACD, which I have as well, that sounds amazing. But yeah, New Gold Dream by Simple Minds, still a great listen. Now number 2. So I can't go past Whitesnake. And before you think hair metal and David Coverdale in the late 80s, let's go back to when they were bluesy and soulful. And this is when I discovered Whitesnake, and this is how I like to remember them. David Coverdale just had a beautiful, soulful voice amongst all the screeching and what have you. And for me, this album is their sweet spot. In the early days, they'd finalised a lineup with John Lord and Ian Pace, who were the heart of Deep Purple, the groove of Deep Purple, and added 2 beautiful, fantastic blues slide players on top of that, Bernie Marsden and Mickey Moody, and you've just got a fantastic band. And this is when they first got some commercial success with Fool for Your Loving, this single off here. I think got into the top 20. And if you ever think David Coverdale was just a screamer, listen to the track Blind Man on here. It is just exquisite, and it's just full of a bluesy vibe, and as well as some rockers as well. Great album, and I've always listened to this. And if you look at how worn that cover is, you can tell it's a well-travelled copy and a well-loved copy. So that is my number 2. So what could possibly top that? Eh? So As I said, I'm a child of the 80s, and for me, my favourite 80s band, it's not Duran Duran, it's not Spandau Ballet, it's not a hair metal band, but it is Talk Talk. Now, this is just an amazing band, an amazing album. So when Talk Talk first emerged, they were very Duran Duran-y, synth pop, kind of new romantic sort of stuff. But no band progressed and evolved more in the space of the 5 albums that they made than Talk Talk. The second album was probably their poppiest, and then they became more and more sparse as they went on and progressive. But for me, this is their sweet spot. And Mark Hollis, their singer, who we lost last year, I think his great quote was, before you play 2 notes, learn how to play 1. And if you're going to play 1 note, have a really good reason for playing it. And he really took that to heart, and they became more and more space in all of their subsequent albums. But as I said, this is a sweet spot. This is a third of their 5 albums. And it has the right balance for me between melody, texture, beautiful recording qualities. This is, whenever I do any little upgrades to my stereo or whatever, this is the first album I reach for. Just amazing musicianship, and true to Mark Hollis's philosophy, every note on there has a reason for being there. There is not a wasted note. And it is just a phenomenal album. And it takes me back to, I had this on cassette in the 80s, sunroof open in my little old Peugeot, driving around country roads with this album playing. And when I got it on vinyl, it was just rediscovering it all over again. Fantastic album, and no 2 of their albums are alike. So I highly recommend exploring this band. And that is probably the most played album of my life from my collection. So hopefully you've enjoyed listening to me ramble on about these, and maybe reflecting on some of the ones that you've played the most over your life. It is interesting to think that perhaps some of your favourite albums are not your most played, and which ones really you keep going back to and why. I think for me, it is coming back to how do I relax, how do I unwind, and these are the albums probably that I reach to when I'm looking to do that. And there are certainly albums that I've got that are maybe better, more accomplished, but they're more a challenging listen perhaps. But it wasn't an easy process. There's heaps out there, and I'd love to hear some of your favourites. I'll do a playlist as well of these, and put a link underneath the video. So thanks for watching. Hope you're keeping safe. Reflect on your record collection, and love to get some comments from you. In the meantime, keep well and enjoy what you have in your collection.